It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your work day, of course. Also, a big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. No matter where you are, Canada, the U.S., or beyond, it is great to have you here listening to our program, and welcome to the RealAg community. Today's show is brought to you, of course, by Pioneer Seeds Canada. They are the exclusive sponsor of the Farmer Rapid Fire, bringing it to you here every Thursday. And I want to talk to you about Viatude, the new fungicide for canola and soybeans. Get best-in-class protection from two of the strongest sclerotinia and white mold actives on the market. You can find out more by going to pioneer.com/Canada. Okay, so big shout out to Pioneer Seeds Canada for being the sponsor of the Farmer Rapid Fire. And speaking of the farmers, we got a great list of participants here today. So up first, we're going to be talking to Stewart Skinner. He's out of Ontario. We got Mark McLean out of Ontario as well. We've got Keith Fournier out of Saskatchewan. We've got Patrick Kunz out of Alberta. And we'll be joined by Derwyn Hammond, who's the Pioneer Seed area agronomist in Brandon, Manitoba. So great list. Lots to chat about with this group too, which I'm always looking forward to. They're all veterans of the Farmer Rapid Fire. If you have any feedback on today's show, well, of course, we'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms. Of course, they're all there, and we're pretty much on all of them. Or you can call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. And no matter where you are in the country, you're dealing with really hoping that Mother Nature does come through. We do have, in some of the dry areas, we've had some moisture over the past number of weeks, which is really positive. In other parts of the country, we'd like maybe the moisture to back off a little bit. And there are pockets that are still waiting for a little bit more moisture as well. So it's a real mixed bunch, and we're going to hear from the farmers here today on the show. Let's get started. And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire into Perth County in Ontario, and we're talking to Stewart Skinner. Hey, Stewart, how's it going?
I'm great, Shaun. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Hey, what's happened on the farm this week? What's going on?
Well, actually, you caught me. We're pig farmers here, but we're getting a couple calves in about an hour. So we're just getting a little calf hutch set up, and it's my kids are getting old enough. It's bottle calf season around here.
Nice. Okay, so teaching the kids some livestock management?
Shaun, I don't know if you've seen the price of beef in the grocery store right now, but it's the one thing that we can raise cheaper than Gale and Weston and Loblaws. So we like to keep a couple beefers around, and this is 2025 beef we're starting today.
No, there you go. Are the kids pretty I don't know how old the kids are. How old are they?
My oldest is 8. So it's one of those things where everybody's eager to do things, but then there's summer camps and kids being kids. So it's I don't know, the right age to start, I guess, but don't need to put them to work full time in the barn yet either.
Yeah. What is the right way to start? What's your opinion? Like, and everybody's different here. Everybody's not going to do it the same. But what's your opinion on how to kind of give kids a taste for it without making it seem like it's a full time job at the age of 10?
I guess we're all biased in terms of thinking that maybe maybe we're not all biased. I think the way my parents did it was pretty smart. They never forced us into much until we were a little bit older. But if we wanted to try something, they were willing to help us out. So, for instance, like I kept goats when I was about my son's age or a little bit older. And I was saying to the person at the farm supply the other day, I didn't realize that my dad was paying my feed bill when I was 10 years old to kind of introduce me to livestock, but shelter me from some of the cruel realities. So I don't know what the right answer is on that. I think if a kid wants to try something and we have the ability to help out a little bit, then that's a great thing. I think it's also important then that we in turn make sure our kids understand how lucky they are to have those opportunities. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I also will say, like, it does make you pretty proud when an 8-year-old can go into a pig nursery and he can come back an hour later with a good report. The understanding the basics of animal husbandry, it's pretty neat to see a person pick that up, and hard to do that at a young age without having, essentially somebody that you can shadow.
Yeah, good points. So, hey, how is the pork business right now?
Every time we talk, Shaun, I think I give you the same answer. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. There's always somebody making money in the pig industry. There's always somebody losing money. I think in saying that, crop prices have come down significantly from where they were last year. Our feed costs have dropped dramatically. We're about $35 a pig lower than we were at the highs in terms of our feed cost per animal. So by and large, things are trending in the right direction. The wild card will be kind of how the next 6 months go in the U.S. Last year, there were some large losses in the hog industry. This year, there is profitability available for some. The key question will be is what does demand do over the next 6 months? Demand has softened a little bit for pork. Does it continue to soften, or do the barbecues firing up kind of save it and pick it back up again?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? I look at it from a beef perspective, and there is talk about softening beef demand as well. Now that's very price oriented, tied to the economic situation for people. Pork though has been relatively much cheaper in comparison, but in the grocery store, I believe that pork prices have come up a little bit, haven't they?
It really depends on your cut.
Okay.
And Canada's having a lot of conversations right now around competitiveness and productivity or lack thereof. I think pork actually, when we look at our further processed product, take your lunch meat. Did you ever make a ham and cheese sandwich for your kids when you were making lunches every day?
Oh yeah.
But take that good old sliced ham, right? Like if you go into the Walmart today and you see the price of the sliced ham, there is a significant profit margin being taken on that further processed product. In large part because there's really only a couple players that actually smoke ham and slice it and turn it into that lunch meat. Take a loin chop as a dip or a tenderloin. Hasn't gone up nearly as much in price. Anybody who harvests a pig can sell a tenderloin. So it's where we see further processing coupled with a lack of competition where prices do get a little messy. Where we see, even though the raw product has come down, the consumer isn't seeing savings. It's almost like we need a little more capitalism to make things work a little better.
$35 an animal in feed costs different. That's a big number for a pig. Huge.
And that's over 10. It's like being able to carve 10% out of your cost structure. You've been an entrepreneur for a long time, Shaun. You'd get out of bed pretty early if someone said, hey, here's 10% that you can drive out of your cost structure tomorrow.
Yeah. The
interesting thing about feed cost is it's not, this isn't because we were brilliant or we got better. It was because the global price of grain, specifically corn, came down. And that's another big part of it. Ontario and Eastern Canada continues to enjoy incredibly competitively priced cash corn. Our corn here in Ontario is cheaper than for your listeners in the heart of Iowa. I'm sorry, but Ontario's corn is cheaper. I guess that's a good thing for most of your listeners in Iowa.
Yeah. What is your favorite pork cut?
Bacon is always going to have its own kind of special place.
Nothing
right?
beats bacon. That's just a given, maybe.
It will continue to be the king. Something that I've become a huge fan of is actually, and it's only when you've got some time to do it, but actually taking, say, like a whole leg. So not so much a cut, but, taking that whole shank where you've got the front shoulder and the Boston butt and all of those things and actually throwing her on an open pit smoker and making a day of it. Now, that's not very family friendly though. Like if you're talking about good old value for money and taste, I struggle to see how you beat a pork tenderloin. You know, you can buy it for $1.99 or $2.99 a pound in the store. It only takes 15 minutes to prepare. If we're looking for a Tuesday night delicious meal, you still can't beat a good old tenderloin, in my opinion.
Yeah,
especially because they've gotten so cheap.
They are. It's actually shocking at times, especially when you look at that beef tenderloin and then you compare it to the pork tenderloin. You're like, pork it is. And of course, that's not the choice all the time. So I don't want to get all these angry emails from beef and cattle ranchers. But you're right, though. It is shockingly cheap. I often wondered, like, why is it so cheap? But that's for somebody smarter than myself.
Well, we made some choices as a pig industry to try to chase chicken instead of beef. And we did that back in the 90s, so I was only 8. So, I mean, I don't take responsibility for it. But I think over time, we were obsessed with trying to create, the other white meat, a more lean, less fat. Well, flavor comes from fat. And look at the rise of full-fat dairy and all these. We've gotten a little bit smarter in understanding our nutrition a little bit better. I think that's one of the challenges for pork now is we work so hard to be chicken when really what we should be trying to do is to be the poor man's beef. And as I say that with earnest, like we can't replicate a ribeye steak out of a pig. There are certain parts of the beef animal that we cannot make, in my opinion.
Right.
We just don't have that flavor profile. But I don't know about your T4, Shaun. Mine says I can't afford to eat too many ribeyes.
Yeah. Believe me, I'm probably in the same boat. I still do indulge, for sure. But you're right.
It's a luxury good, right? Like
it's a sticker
that
shock.
beef is more of a luxury, and where we've missed the boat as pork is making sure that there's something that's almost as good and almost as flavorful, but for literally half the price.
Yeah. Well, people overcook it too. That's the other problem. And terribly overcook it.
So right. Like we had some for Mother's Day. We cooked up some boneless butterfly chops, and you pull them off the grill when they're only like 140, 145 at absolute max.
Yeah.
And then they stay juicy. They're not your grandmother's pork. That's another challenge for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you weren't hungry, audience, before this segment, you definitely are now. Hey, Stewart, thanks so much for joining us here this week on the Farmer Rapid Fire.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Shaun. Good to talk.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, we'll be right back on the Farmer Rapid Fire here on RealAg Radio, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Peter Johnson at Wheat Pete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh! You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch Wheat Pete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify.
I am Lindsay Smith. Joining me now is Rob Meyer for Genesis Fertilizers. We can't have this conversation without, of course, an update on where the Genesis plant is at as far as plans.
An announcement, many probably know this, was recently made to expand the production capacity of the nitrogen plant in Belle Plaine. A plant with the capabilities to provide not just urea, but also urea ammonia sulfate, the UAS, as well as the DEF, that's the diesel exhaust fluid component, with future plans now in play to install the equipment and also produce UAN. So if you really think about it, that package, these upgrades are not only going to make the plant more flexible, I think that's a key ingredient, but more profitable for the farmer owners. We're entering the spring. Farmers are thinking about their businesses, their crop plans, their fuel, their fertilizer. We're right in the mix of it right now with, incredible experts, and we're pushing this project. It's a great time to be on board.
And Rob, for those interested, where can they go for more information?
Visit us at genesisfertilizers.com.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire that's brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada to Port Albert, Ontario. We're talking to Mark McLean. Hey, Mark, how are we doing today?
Good. How are you, Shaun?
Pretty good. Okay, what's happening on the farm this week? Are wheels turning, or is moisture holding you back?
Well, we've been just on a bit of delay since about last Saturday, but the sun's shining today. Things are looking optimistic. We have the pivot point's going to be Friday. We've got a 45% chance of rain. I'm not exactly sure what 45% means, but we're all a little on pins and needles that we're going to be part of the 45 or part of the lucky group that kind of misses this one.
Now, are you hoping for dryness now? Like, because you're feeling like you're getting a little bit behind. Is that accurate?
Our particular area has had a good week last week. A lot of guys got rolling late week and a lot of stuff went in the ground. I think there's other places, that could use a bit more of the dryness, but we managed to tic-tac-toe around the countryside, find some field conditions that were fit to plant some seeds, but we're getting down to the last, third of the acres to put in, and we're kind of running out of that forgiving ground that we can maybe push a little bit. So, a 5 or 7 day stretch, a dryness would go a long way. But right now the forecast is pretty well showing us, 2 days of dry, 1 day of wet, 2 days of dry, 1 day of wet. So it makes it entertaining. Do
you start with corner beans, or like what do you got left? Corner beans.
So we corn's our mainstay to get in first, but it ran for a day before we got the bean planter hustling in behind it as well. We did hire in a couple neighbors to give us a hand with some field prep, and that's one thing that we probably don't shy away from, is asking for a little bit of help, paying a bit of a custom work bill just to maybe get things moving. So people aren't plenty anymore to seem to work on the farm. So if we can hire in a neighbor that maybe has some ground that's not quite ready, but they have equipment that is, then we'll get them to come in and give us a bit of a head start. So we do have, I would say 2/3 of our corn acres are in, and about a quarter of our bean acres are in. So we're not concerned, but we're watching the calendar still.
The calendar can play on your mind, can't it? Like it's weird. And as much as we talk about, you got to keep the emotion out of it, you got to be structured around when the soil's fit, and blah 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 blah. But the calendar, it does tick away at your head, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and then I'm just getting ready to spray some wheat here now. Probably by the end of the week we'll be full flag leaf here on wheat. That puts us about a full week ahead of last year. So, when you look at the calendar that way, it doesn't make any sense. So are we late putting corn and beans in, or is the wheat early? And at that point also, a June frost, an early June frost would be detrimental to most things that is in the ground or is growing. So, the wheat crop hasn't stopped growing. The grass hasn't stopped growing. We're still cutting lawn all the time. So, the calendar kind of does say it's an early spring. So we better get marching.
Do you use a plant growth regulator at all on your wheat?
We did. I have a couple of varieties of wheat that we grow that tend to get a little weak in the legs if they're going to put on some big bushels. And there's about 2 in the market. One of them seems to be pretty a mainstay around this part of the world, to keep that crop standing. And we have seen it where, it's no fun picking it off the ground. So if we can go out there and do that, that was a month ago that went on. And it's hard to believe, that was early for us too, to find a day where it was warm enough, before and after application without burning. So
it sounds like the wheat crop looks pretty good at your place.
That's
knock on wood.
We're
knocking
on wood, and
okay.
we're optimistic as I make plans here for this week to do some T2 timing. What kind of groceries are we going to throw at it, and then as we look forward into heading time, what products are we going to use? Are we going to spend some more money, or are we going to sit on our wallets? Markets have kind of rallied a bit, and we look like we do have a promising crop. Sitting out in the field at this point for our soft red and probably the hard red winter wheat growers in Ontario. So,
what's been the biggest challenge this spring so far for it? We're early, like we're only the 5th, the 16th of May here today. But what's been the biggest challenge?
It's still May? Is it still May?
It is.
I thought it was June. And it is the challenge is trying not to focus on the calendar. The challenge is being ready. And hoping that everything falls into place the days you do get to work. So, and it is the weather that seems to be the part that we're leaning on the hardest, I guess, is the weather and ground conditions. The ground's not working up the best.
I heard about this. So Peter Johnson was talking about this on Monday, that this is a thing that a lot of people are dealing with, is that it's not working up very well.
Yeah, and I don't know, they kind of blame whether it's no frost or no freeze or too much moisture or whatever. We notice a bit of difference between, rotation and different stuff like that. But we've seen this before. One year we grew white beans, and into the first week of June, we still had conditions like this where the ground just wouldn't work for you. And you got to kind of, some places can't do what we do with this type of soil, and you got to open it and then beat it back down and try to make it fit. It's probably not, there's no chapter in the soil economics book that says you should do that, but that seems to be how we get away with it. But, so yeah, it's just, I don't know whether, and all week we haven't seen a good, it just hasn't went out there with the cultivator and thought this is working up nice. We haven't had that situation yet.
As you said that, I just sort of thought of, okay, if there was actually like a farming manual, right? Like a really true in-depth farming manual to deal with all the different things on any given year. Can you imagine how big that manual would be?
I'd hope that it was perforated so you could use it in the bathroom. Because next year the plan would change.
Yeah. Like, you just think about it. Like, if you're working in an auto plant, right? And you're on the assembly line, you've got an operations manual. And,
Yep.
Standard operating procedures, what happens if this happens. And they're thick, and they're like, I'm not trying to make light of it. There's complexity to that job too. But
and if you deviate from that plan,
you're going to
get a write-up. You're in trouble.
Yeah. You're in trouble.
It was last Monday. We had a plan, and I have a plan with books and tractors and fertilizer applicators have a plan, and they have maps and they have things. And we just took that whole book last Monday and we hucked her into the fire pit, and she went out the window, and it was just whoever can go wherever, just do something.
Yeah.
And then we'll pick the pieces up here when it's all said and done, put them back together, put the puzzle together, and then hopefully at the end we have a pretty picture.
Yeah, I think that's a part of the planning process too, right? Is like, you make it light of it, but I think that's just the reality, is that it's not about, okay, we have the ideal scenario, and if everything falls in line, here's exactly what we'll do. But also there's a secondary and a tertiary part of that as well, which is, okay, if that plan doesn't work, what do we do for B and C, right? And we may need to get all the way to elemental P, hopefully not, but it's having those sub things and just, thinking about what are the different variables based on a probability set, right? So I think that's kind of common what you're talking about.
Well, and it's also very important for retailers and that too, to be able to pivot with you.
Oh yeah.
And that's one thing that we're very fortunate in our area, that we have some really good retailers to work with, that, you know what, we were going to do this there and we were going to do that, but now we're going to change it and we're going to go this direction. And some people can't fathom that change all of a sudden or last minute, but a lot of these people are really fortunate that we work with that can do that. So
yeah, great. It's important to have partners you're working with that can come through and be a part of that planning process and the execution of it too. That's a fantastic point. Hey, Mark, thanks a lot for joining us here today in the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best to you getting this planting completed, and we'll talk to you a little bit later on the growing season, okay?
Yep. Thank you, Shaun. Thanks for all you guys do.
Hey, awesome stuff. Really appreciate it. Okay, when we come back on RealAg Radio, we're going to continue the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
Hi, it's Bruce with Ag Direct Hail Insurance. This season, Ag Direct Hail is proud to support prairie farmers by taking the unprecedented move of keeping our crop hail insurance rates at or below 2023 prices. With the many challenges facing farm families, this is our way of thanking producers who work hard to put quality food on our table. You have our back, and Ag Direct has yours. Visit agdirecthail.com or call us toll-free. We appreciate your business.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Our next stop on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, is Lone Rock, Saskatchewan, and we're talking to Keith Fournier. Hey, Keith, how's it going?
Going good, thanks.
What's happened on the farm this week? What are you up to?
Just getting some seeds in the ground, planting wheat right now, and it's got a couple days left, and the peas are in the ground. So, just trying to get the seeds in before this rain coming.
Yeah, how is the moisture situation there in Lone Rock?
Yeah, we're sitting pretty good. I mean, we were dry this spring. We had a couple of, good rains come through. So not having to drive around any potholes, and yet, still have really nice moisture to seed into.
Nice. Well, that's going to feel good.
Oh, yeah, it does feel good. You get, every once in a while, you get one of those years that you don't have to make circles out in a field and still have that adequate moisture. But they don't come along very often, so you got to appreciate them when they do come.
Yeah, and this is a common thing, I think, on the prairies right now, is that we're, at least in some of the really dry areas in Alberta and Saskatchewan, we're feeling better than we did 60 days ago from a productivity standpoint as we look at the moisture level in the soil. Not the case in all areas, but at least that's anecdotally what I've been hearing from a lot of growers.
Yeah, for this area, I mean, we've got lots of surface moisture now, and really great seeding conditions to go into. I'm just not so sure that we have that deeper subsoil moisture, which on the last couple of years has pulled through to make us a crop. And, so it's just going to keep taking some timely rains for the summer.
Yeah. Did you mention canola? Do you have canola in or?
Not yet. We try and get the peas in first, and then we'll switch over to wheat. So a couple more days of wheat, and then we'll be switching to canola.
Okay. That's good. What spring wheat variety are you putting in the ground?
We're still with Viewfield. I mean, we've been with Viewfield for a few years, and we've looked at a couple other ones, and we keep coming back to it just because it just seems to respond to our fertility package that we're using for our farm. We are going to try we have some Hockley going in this year, so we're taking a look at it, and we'll assess it besides the Viewfield to see where we're going to go for next year.
Oh, good stuff. Any big changes for this year from a farm management perspective?
Yeah, maybe not from I don't know from a farm management perspective, but I mean, I'm always of that curious mind and want to do some trials, and so I'm trying out some humic acid on 1/4 of land. We'll see where that goes. So that's being applied on. I've got a fertilizer trial. So between urea and mixing different blends with ESN into it, and those trials are on wheat and canola. So the wheat one is in, the canola one will be coming up, and then I also have a fungicide trial on pulses. So lots of flags out in my fields this year.
Well, good for you for being committed to some of that research. That it's easy to talk about. It's another thing to execute it and make it all happen, but. Good for you. I like on-farm trials. I think it's too bad we don't see more of it, right? I think people have the best of intentions, but it's pretty cool to see you're following through on it.
Yeah, I always find that it takes some time, but every one of them I learn from it, and it's something that we could apply back to our farms. And the other one too is you just it gets you to know. I guess, for sure what works on your farm under your management practices. And like the humic acid one, that one's been interested me for a couple of years, but I just have not made the leap to go and try it. And so, that'll be a new one for me on this year.
Is there a number of growers in your area using humic acid?
I think it's really limited. There's probably some are dabbling with it. I don't know if there's any of them actually, go out and do a replicated trial to where they're going to take it right through to a weigh wagon. I think there's some, I'll put it on a quarter section and try it. But I just find that if I want to try a new product, I've got to go out and stick the flags out in the field, and it has to be replicated and taken right through to yield, or lots of times you just end up jumping to wrong conclusions.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? And you know what? There's the one thing that's worse than no data is bad data.
Exactly, yeah. And I've on some of these trials I've done before, and I'll take the first swath of treatment and then the first swath of check, and I'll think, man, this treatment really did give a big yield. But by the time I do the other 3 reps on it, well, all of a sudden it comes out, you know what, this is a wash. It really didn't statistically give me any extra yield at all. So it's just important to take that, to replicate it and take it right through to the weigh wagon.
All right. So you what are your goals? Is it yield? Is it like, how do you measure success when you're trying out some of these new techniques or products?
Well, it depends on the product. For the humic acid one, it will be yield. It will be, I guess, plant establishment. If are the plants healthier, and hopefully that will come over to yield. But when trying with the ESN trials I got on with the different percentages on wheat, I mean, we'll take that through and just see where, if it affects maturity, if it affects protein in the end, and of course yield is a big one, because yield is the one that puts the dollars back in your pocket, makes it economic sense of whether you should invest in that product or not.
Yeah, great points. How are you feeling about the markets? Because we've had a bit of a bounce here, Keith. Things are looking a little bit better than they were, say, 45 days ago. But are you pulling the trigger at all, or what are you doing?
Well, I did I heavily marketed my canola here earlier in the year, like probably mostly from last fall into about January. And so that part was done. My wheat, I wasn't quite as aggressive on that. And I mean, that will cost me some dollars, but I mean, you just sometimes just increment those sales out over the year. But yeah, it's nice to see this bounce come back. It just adds to the optimism to see that price come back, along with the spring moisture we've got here. So it's I'm liking where the markets are. And even if they sit where they are right now, as long as we can get an average crop, it gives us a fair return on investment.
Yeah, nice. I like the optimism, Keith. Love it. Hey, really appreciate you joining us here for the Farmer Rapid Fire this week. All the best to you, and we'll chat with you once that crop gets out of the ground and we're into spraying season, okay?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks, Shaun.
And that is Keith Fournier out of Lone Rock. Okay, when we come back on RealAg Radio, we're going to continue the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada.
It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
It's now time for a product spotlight, joined right now by Lauren Cummin. She's the Director of Policy at Seeds Canada. Okay, we're going to talk about a very important topic, and that is seed regulatory modernization. What needs to happen from your point of view?
Well, right now, Seeds Canada is talking and has been talking for quite a while about the need for balanced, refreshed governance in the seed regulatory system. To allow us to keep pace with innovation, our framework needs to allow for continuous improvement. An independent advisory committee will not not only provide a framework for consultation, but it also provides a balanced governance structure that reflects the modern seed sector today. And the sector is concerned that rather than focusing on these bigger picture pieces that are going to get us to where we need to be, we're focusing on minor edits to what we already have, and in some cases, proposals to even go back in time. We really want to see a return on investment for everyone's time and resources going into SRM. We want to be able to compete moving forward.
And we continue the Farmer Rapid Fire here on this Thursday, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Right now we're talking to Patrick Kunz. Hey, Patrick, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Pretty good. Well, I should say Patrick is in Beiseker, Alberta. Hey, how are crop conditions in Beiseker?
Really good, I would say. Nothing's really, well, I shouldn't say nothing's come up. It's starting to come up, and moisture conditions are really good right now. We've been getting little shots of rain here and there, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with how things look right now, that's for sure.
Feeling pretty good. Isn't that a nice feeling? Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But in all honesty, we were good last year too at this time of year. I wouldn't say it dried up during seeding, but we did have decent subsoil moisture actually.
Okay, you know what? Fantastic point, right? Because with the dry bias that we've had in certain parts of the prairies, we don't have a big reserve, right? So this is great. You know, I'm in Lethbridge, so I can, speak fairly accurately to this. We're going to need more, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, but that's the thing we always do, right? We don't make a crop in April. It's, we need June rains. We need July rains. June is usually kind of dependable. It just hasn't been in the, drought things, I guess. We're not going to get away. Last year, we were definitely safe with the amount of subsoil moisture that we did have available. It was better than anyone thought. So we didn't get much rain, and we still pulled off not great crops, but more than locals expected, anyways. Around here, anyways. Yeah. I know there's some really bad areas too and whatnot, obviously.
Well, and in typical May long weekend form, we're going to be chilly and cool, right? We got temperatures getting down close to freezing again.
Yeah, like you say, typical, right?
Yeah. You ever do the May long weekend camping trip and get the big snowstorm?
Oh, absolutely. when I was 17, for sure.
Yeah, we all have those stories. I went to Waterton one time, and I think there was about 1.5 feet of snow that fell on the tent that we were staying in. And when we had left home, we were in shorts, and then big blizzard.
Yeah, that's here around here it was Wipers area that we'd always go to, kind of in the out towards the foothills. But.
Nice. Well, you said you got some crop out of the ground. What's out of the ground, and how's it look?
Wheat is coming up. Peas are probably getting close to emerging. Looking really good right now, as it should. We did get, a few shots of rain in between seeding here, and yeah, I'm real happy with how things look.
Well, that's good. What about the markets? What do you think about that?
They're returning to more normal than what we've seen, I would say. I don't know. We've been pretty spoiled the last few years. I know things are still fairly high on the input side, but I think overall margins are, not, I know there's lots of doom and gloom, but it's, I think, more traditional margins, I guess, not the kind of highs that we've been seeing over the past number of years. Yeah.
Important to know your costs, when you're dealing with where we are today versus where we were 2 years ago.
Oh, it is. And I don't think, that's right. Yeah. And on the other side, it's, I don't think we can expect, we've had really good returns for a number of years. And I don't think, that stays around forever. I'm not, about to doom and gloom this scenario, but it's just is more normal an accurate assessment? I don't know, I guess, or what do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, the markets are going to do what markets are going to do. We've seen, our Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index, we've seen people's outlook on the direction of the markets is all over the place. It's very volatile from quarter to quarter, right? And I think that's kind of normal, essentially, and that's what's going to happen. It's just how you market through that volatility, because that it brings opportunity, right? Like,
I was just going to say, opportunity is in volatility. It's not in the stagnant market anyway. So,
yeah,
I mean, take some opportunity when it comes. I guess we have, our crops here are fairly like liquid, I would say. Like you can hedge and sell things, early on if you want. And I know there's risk to that too. Like, it's not like everybody talks about hedging like it's, you're taking away risk, but if you just do some of, you contract some, and I'm not talking a lot, I know what happens on where there is in that. And later in the summer, maybe you can do a little bit of hedging or look at some options or whatnot. I don't know. There is plenty of options for us to like actually hedge. I think guys get in trouble too, where it's not really hedging anymore. It's more speculative. And you got to watch the guys that are selling you these things, because they can make things pretty convoluted too.
Yeah, there's some pretty complex, exotic option strategies out there.
Oh man, it gets pretty crazy. And I asked my guy, like, how much of this is actually hedging now and how much is speculating? And he's like, like, okay, I want to stick to actual hedging and not speculating. Like, I'm not a trader. I'm just a grower. So
yeah,
let's stick to the basics here.
Yeah, if I'm going to get a margin call, I want it to be related to the hedge, right? Not getting margin calls, and I'm long inventory out in the field, and or in the pens, and I'm also long inventory on a sheet.
Yeah, I usually stick to options for that reason, and it's a little bit more costly, so there's some opportunity cost that goes away, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I do more, sometimes less. Certainly, higher volatility means I'll probably do a bit more.
So, how did you get it? So, I've always on the cattle side of the equation, a lot of people are using options. On the cropping side, definitely less. How did you get into at least exploring the idea of options, or how'd you get yourself up to speed?
I guess through my bank. When I took out the mortgage, they wanted to see a little bit more security. Just, on the hedging side or whatnot, just to be a bit on the safer side. And, well, obviously me too, because I don't want to lose my ass doing this either. But, so that's the bank was kind of looking for it and asking about it, and then they helped me open up an account, and, that's about, ended up doing it through people I already had an existing relationship with on the agronomy side, but that's kind of how I got into it.
Good stuff. So as we sit here right now, middle of May, you feeling decently optimistic about the year ahead?
Oh, I'm always optimistic. I'm the wrong guy to ask that question.
I love it.
I don't know. I was optimistic last year too. Like, I don't know. I'll let you know in July how things look, I guess. But in the meantime, I'm gonna, try to grow as good a crop as I can. I'm not like skimping anywhere. I'm spraying as much, as I can to keep up with everything, and
head down, grinding it out, and hopefully the Mother Nature helps out when we need her to. I think that's a lot of people sitting in that exact same situation.
Yeah, pretty much. But that's no different than always. Like, there's just, I don't know what guys are. It's funny. You always hear guys saying, "Oh, I just want a normal year." No, what they're actually wanting is a perfect year, and I think you need to kind of get away from that a little bit and say, well, it's just not going to be that, and that's okay too. You shouldn't need a perfect year to make a goal of it. That's for sure.
And what's normal, right?
I don't know what's normal. Like, that's exactly right. I really actually honestly don't know.
Yeah, doesn't exist. Every year is going to be different for sure.
Every year is going to be different and have some difficulties in one way or another.
Hey, Patrick, thanks a lot for joining us here today on the Farm Rapid Fire.
You bet.
That is Patrick Kunz from Beiseker, Alberta. And the Farmer Rapid Fire is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. We'll be right back right after this.
Choose Viatude fungicide and unleash best-in-class sclerotinia protection in canola and premium protection against white mold in soybeans. Viatude contains a powerful premix of Onmira Active and Prothioconazole. This unique combo delivers high-performance disease control, crop safety, mix compatibility, resistance management, and advanced mobility for excellent coverage and superior plant protection. Choose Viatude fungicide for stronger, more vigorous crops.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
And to finish up the Farmer Rapid Fire, we go into Brandon, Manitoba. And of course, Farmer Rapid Fire is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And right now we're joined by area agronomist Derwyn Hammond with Pioneer Seeds Canada. Hey, Derwyn, how's it going?
Hey, Shaun. It's great to be here. Glad to join you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, before we get into some of the topics we're going to chat about here today, how's the moisture conditions out there in Brandon?
I would say pretty good. We've had some recent rainfall, so it's been lighter rains that I don't think are going to stall guys for too long if we can get a few sunny days in a row. But it's just been kind of keeping guys out of the field. But I think as far as moisture for planting, we're in a pretty good spot around here right now. So.
Okay, that's good to hear. Stand establishment. I know we want to cover this because it's so critical to get that crop off to a very, very even, consistent start. And when we're looking at that stand, we also have to not only be careful about to do all the things possible to ensure that we get the best stand we can, but also to review what actually happened, correct?
Yeah, that's really key. And so I guess my advice right now around here with guys having been a bit delayed and it's starting to feel like maybe we're running a little behind the schedule we were hoping for as far as getting stuff in the ground. You know, it provides that incentive to want to speed up a little in the field and maybe not take time to get out and check that depth of placement and ensure that that planting equipment's achieving what you were shooting for. Yep. But precise placement's really key, and that consistency of that depth of placement. So whether you're planting shallow now because you've got some moisture to work with, you know, that if you have too much variation in that, those shallowest seeds are likely to get stranded till the next round of rain that we get. That might be 2 weeks from now. And now you've got those late emergers that really make it a challenge as you move forward and manage the crop throughout the rest of the season. And if you are planting deeper in some areas of the prairies where you haven't maybe gotten some of these rains, obviously those deepest planted seeds may never make it out of the ground. So whether you're planting deep or shallow, consistent placement's key. And the other thing is, you know, I just always recommend don't target the minimum acceptable plant stand as your target with your seeding rate. Shoot for the middle, give yourself some margin for error. Thin stands or vulnerable stands. So we know we can get away with, you know, 4 or 5 plants per square foot in canola as an example and still get a good crop, but we're vulnerable to the stresses throughout the rest of the season, weed competition, insect damage, all of those things that a lower population to start with means we're more vulnerable for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, Mark McLean from Ontario, and we were talking about the calendar. And, you know, you get to certain points and you feel like it's in your favor, and then it kind of feels like it's working against you. It can really play on your mind, and you got to be disciplined about it.
Yeah, exactly right. You only get one chance to put the crop in the ground each year. And doing a good job of it the first time usually pays dividends throughout the rest of the season.
Well, and I won't profess to be an agronomist like yourself, but I do know a few things. And early weed control is critical, super important. And the longer we leave those weeds, I'll just wait to get a little bit bigger and make sure a few more will emerge, and I'll get them all at one, at that one time. You could be hurting yourself, right? Early weed control's just so important, especially as it correlates to yield.
Well, there's definitely lots of research with pretty much every crop showing that those weeds competing with the crop as it's emerging when it's young and the most vulnerable, that weed competition early costs you the most. So the thing I've been talking to a lot of guys around this area with the delays in planting, it's tempting to seed first, and I'll do that burn off treatment to clean things up if I get the chance before it gets out of the ground. It ties you into that window, and with our Prospect's our product that we use, that we have available as a tank mix partner for burn offs in front of canola and corn. We've done a lot of work with it in the last couple of years looking at that, and we've really learned that a half a day ahead of the planting equipment performs much better than a day behind. Even with a low disturbance planting planter or a disc planter, we still do enough damage to those weeds that the efficacy does drop off. And so, you're probably better off to take that half day at a time, clean it up first, and then come in behind it with the planting equipment. Just the efficacy is going to be better.
The other thing early in the season here is scouting for pests. Any tips or things we need to make sure we got on top of our mind as we're out there and we're looking for those flea beetles and all the other things that are trying to take away some of our yield?
That's probably the one that comes up the most consistently across the prairies is flea beetles in canola. And certainly with the cooler weather in the forecast here, they get more mobile in the high teens and 20-degree weather and more active. So they'll tend to stay closer to the ground. The windy conditions we've been having in a lot of areas will also keep them, feeding on the bottom of the cotyledons or down on the stems of the plants where it's a little hidden and not as obvious, and but potentially can cause more harm to those small cotyledon seedlings as they're coming up. All the effective seed treatments, they all require the flea beetles to take a bite. So some damage is inevitable as we control them with those seed treatments, but we need to keep an eye on that plant and make sure we don't get past that 25% leaf area loss. That's kind of the threshold for maybe needing a rescue treatment. And that all depends on how fast is the crop growing and adding biomass versus how fast the flea beetles are consuming it. So I tell guys it's a race every year, and anything that, dry weather, dry conditions, it's working against the growth rate of that crop. Those are the fields that are going to be most vulnerable.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong correlation there. Indeed. Hey, as an agronomist, you got to be big. Well, you do have a big smile on your face. I could see you on the Zoom call here, but good time of year, man.
Yep, you bet. It's always exciting. Getting that crop in the ground and getting out in the field and starting to work with the next year's crop. So.
Absolutely. Hey, Derwyn, thanks for joining us here today in the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best to you.
You too. Thanks a lot.
As Derwyn Hammond out of Brandon, Manitoba, area agronomist with Pioneer Seeds Canada. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Thanks everybody for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio, and we'll of course chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.